So, hello again. We will continue with our presentations for biology of plants at Arkansas State University Campus Querétaro, and this is the second presentation, Bryophytes, Liverworts. So, liverworts are plants in the phylum Marchantiophyta, and they can look a couple different ways. They might look like a flat, loaf plant, and that kind of looks leafy and or alternatively, they might look more like a moss. So here we have a leafy liverwort, and this one is something that looks kind of like a moss. Importantly, liverworts are going to be plants that do not have stomata. And stomata are in fact present in some structures in mosses and also in hornworts, the other two groups of bryophytes that we will be covering. So the name of liverworts actually has to do with their appearance. People thought that liverworts looked something like the shape of a liver. In fact, that is specific to leafy liverworts. The lobes that make up their body kind of have like the shape of the liver, if you have a lot of imagination. And people in the Middle Ages thought that maybe they were meant that they were related to livers, or they might be good to cure liver disease. And in Spanish, the name is also related to the liver because we call them hepaticas. And as you know, that word specifically makes reference to liver. The second part of the name, the word wort, is an old English word used to refer to any plant. So literally we have liverwort meaning liver plant. The structure of liverworts is rather simple, as it is with all bryophytes, and basically in um, leafy liverworts, you have a flat structure that is called a thallus, or in plural, thalli. And the way that this thallus is going to be composed is on the top surface they're going to have pores like the ones you can see here that are going to allow for the exchange of gases. And those pores are going to remain open at all times. You might remember that the same function is fulfilled by stomata in other plants, and in this case we just said that there's no stomata. So of course liverworts don't have the capacity of opening and closing the pores, which stay open always, and therefore they cannot regulate their gas exchange and their transpiration. On the lower surface of the liverwort, we are going to have these structures that make up the function of roots, and we call them rhizoids. And so we can see them right here in the lower picture. And however, they are not roots, because if you remember, roots are complex organs that are going to have several different kinds of tissues. In this case, the rhizoids are going to be made up of a single cell, and their main function is going to be to anchor liverworts to the ground. So basically, when we look at the whole thing together, you have the pores on the upper surface and the rhizoids on the surface below. And then we have tissue in between, the equivalent of ground tissue that is going to be doing the metabolism and photosynthesis for the liverwort. The life cycle of liverworts is going to be rather similar to that of other bryophytes, so we will be seeing something like this pattern over and over again. Eventually you will become familiar with the basic ideas of what's going on. So we can start with spores. And spores are going to be haploid reproductive structures that germinate and become this mass of filaments called a protonema. And all they're doing right then is just doing mitosis, cellular divisions. Eventually, that protonema develops into a haploid thallus. Remember, thallus is going to be the body of the liverwort. And that is going to be our gametophyte stage in the life cycle. And that, in fact, is going to be a haploid plant. haploid organisms, as you remember, have only one copy of each chromosome. Most plants that we see are going to be diploid plants. In this case, this is one of the few plants, bryophytes, the gametophyte of bryophytes are going to be one of the few plants that you'll see that are actually haploid. So we start with the spore, the protonema, and then we get gametophytes. Now, the gametophyte, as you know, is going to be the stage in the life cycle of the plant that is going to be producing gametes, right? So that haploid thallus that we talked about produces gametangia, organs whose function is going to be to produce gametes. And if you remember, we mentioned this earlier, those gametangia in bryophytes are called antheridia for the male and archegonia for the female structure. So antheridia are going to be producing sperm, and they have little chambers in the surface of the thallus that become filled with many sperm. And actually we will be looking at a video of that soon. And the archegonia are going to be producing eggs, and they sort of have, we can see it right here, they're like a little vase that is surrounding the egg, while the antheridium is this structure over here that is producing the sperm. So there's, in the archegonium you have one egg down there at the bottom, and the antheridium, each one of the compartments within it is going to be producing many sperm. Now, the typical liverwort species that we use to talk about this is Marchantia. And in Marchantia, you have antheridia and archegonia that kind of have these funny shapes. They look like a little palm tree, or like maybe a clover or something like that. And essentially it is a plant that is popular because it's used for teaching and for research. And the antheridia and archegonia in it are going to be developing like these little stalks that you'll probably be seeing whenever you find a life cycle of liverworts. And so you have the body of the gametophyte, and you have the antheridia and archegonia on top of those stalks. And in Marchantia, you actually have male and female plants. So the male plants are going to have only antheridia, and female plants only archegonia. So, however, this is not always the case that you have separate plants with male and female parts. Some liverworts are what we call monoecious, meaning they produce male and female reproductive structures on the same plant. Mono meaning one, right? And ecious comes from the same root as eco, as in ecology, meaning home. So one home, in the case of monoecious plants, is implying that in the same plant you have both male and female structures. Dioecious, on the other hand, you have two homes. Each, the male and female structures, have their own home because they're found in separate plants. The thallus of liverworts is haploid, as we mentioned before, and therefore the production of sperm and eggs of the gametes is done by mitosis. You do not need to do meiosis in order to produce haploid cells if the structures producing those haploid cells are haploid already. And again, here we're seeing gametangia in Marchantia. Now, to continue the life cycle, you have the release of sperm, and those sperm are going to swim and they're going to find that egg inside the antheridium where fertilization occurs, and then we have the production of a zygote. The zygote divides by mitosis and produces an embryo, And that embryo then is able to develop into the next stage of the life cycle, which is going to be the diploid sporophyte. The fusing together of the haploid sperm and haploid egg brings us back to a diploid zygote that generates our diploid uh, embryo. That diploid embryo, like that you can see right here, is actually our young sporophyte. And eventually it starts growing within the tissues of the archegonium. And in liverworts in particular, the sporophytes are small, they're club-shaped structures that grow out of the archegonia. So you have that little club-shaped structure, and we went back to the beginning again because now we are ready for the production of spores. So, sorry, I'm just going to go back to this one. Here we have that sporophyte by meiosis producing spores again. So meiosis in this case generates spores, and gametes are produced by mitosis. And when meiosis happens, then we have that haploid number again. Now, liverworts also have another strategy for reproduction, and that is asexual reproduction. Liverworts can produce these tissues called gemmy, or rather I should say I actually wrote the pronunciation here, Jimmy, apparently, which are little groups of cells that are found inside these little cups of tissue that develop on top of the gametophyte. Now, those little discs can then be splashed out of the cups by raindrops, and if they fall in the right kind of environment, they develop into a new plant, into a new gametophyte. So now what we'll do is we're going to be looking at a growth video of a liverwort, and I hope it will be a little bit relaxing for you guys. So that was the growth of a liverwort. Again, I hope it was relaxing. If you look closely into that video, you can see the production of gametangia. You can see a few Jimmy cups being produced. And then let's try for another moment of relaxation with the next video. And this is going to be the release of liverwort sperm. So that's it for now, guys. That was Liverworts. I hope you learned a lot. And if you have any questions, as always, please let me know. You can always post your questions in the forum, and I'm also available for you to communicate with me through email or at my office hours. See you the next presentation. Bye.